and welcome back to Caring Conversations. This is episode 2. You're with Melissa Therrien with Ohana Care, and I have my co-host here, Liz Lewington. Hey, Liz, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about navigating home care funding, understanding both Alberta and BC's support programs, all of the funding resources available to support people looking into home care supports.
Yeah.
Shall we get started?
Yeah. I think, they're considering we're both in Canada, the two provinces themselves have such different ways of accessing resources and different resources in general. So I am interested to hear what you have to say about Alberta, and then I'll throw in my 2 cents, and we'll see who's going to win. Do we want to try a little game here and see who's got the better funding, or?
Sure. Nothing like some friendly competition.
I feel like BC might not come out on top here, but I'm interested what Alberta home care funding options are. Did you want to dive right in?
Sure. Yeah. I'd love to introduce the newest home care funding option that's called the Client-Directed Home Care Invoicing Program.
Yeah.
Though the title isn't phenomenal, the program itself is. It's a hybrid program where Alberta Health Services works with Alberta Blue Cross to support people who have been assessed and approved for the program to get some partial funding for their home care supports. So a really nice option for people looking for individualized care with flexibility of schedule and still getting that funding resource that every Albertan is entitled to.
When you say that it's partial funding, what does that look like?
For sure. So in Alberta right now, the funding is $33.61 per hour. So I say partial funding because every home care provider has the ability to set their hourly rates as whatever they would like it to be.
Okay.
So when you are looking at exploring home care supports and how to get the most bang for your buck, you'd probably want to look at resources that are in and around that price point, or consider the budget when you are looking at what that hourly rate is and what the out-of-pocket expense would be.
Yeah. So then how do people access it? What's the process of getting CDHCI?
Yeah, and great that you use that CDHCI acronym, because that's what we use, because the title is so long.
Yeah.
So it's all administered through Alberta Health Services. So you would want to reach out to the community home care intake line. That can be reached through 811 anywhere in the province. And through there, you would have a home care nurse come out, do an assessment, determine how many hours you qualify for. And then through a convoluted algorithm, they would decide how many hours of funding you would be able to carry with you to a vendor of your choice.
Yeah. Are there a lot of vendors out there that are accepting that client-directed home care invoicing program?
Yeah, thankfully, there are a ton of them, which leaves lots of options for Albertans to choose what suits them best. Choosing a caregiver or choosing a home care provider that aligns with what you're looking for. That's the intention of the program, is to give Albertans the choice to find caregivers and a company or an agency that best suits their needs, with the flexibility and the budget, meets their budget.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds beautiful on paper. Does it work that way in real life?
Yeah. I mean, there's red tape. It's funding from the government, right? So there is a waiting period. There are limitations to the program, of course. But the great thing is that it does provide the flexibility and the options for loved ones who are still at home and need some support in caring for their client, essentially, or their loved one who isn't a home care client, right? Yeah. So it does cover things like respite. There are some hours dedicated to homemaking, which Alberta Health Services in their funded option doesn't offer.
Wow. Oh, so this is when did this come out? This is a huge improvement to the whole model, in my opinion.
Yeah, so not without hiccups, honestly. Yeah. We went through a period where the program was put on hold for auditing purposes to understand whether it was a fruitful program and could be sustained by the government. That just happened last year, or this year, I suppose. But the program has been around, I think, for about 2 years now. I believe it started in Edmonton and moved into Calgary early last year. So, we have quite a few clients that are making use of the program and really enjoying the flexibility that comes with it.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds beautiful, but I'm not a realist. I like to try and paint that picture and hope that it comes true for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I mean,
are there
it's another option. Sorry.
Are there other options? So that we're calling it the CDHCI because it's a mouthful, but CDHCI, are there other options? I know you said that Alberta Health still manages the home support separate from the CDHCI program.
Yeah, so there is the fully funded option, which comes through Alberta Health Services. Every Albertan is entitled to do it, to utilize it based on need. Again, that assessment is completed through Alberta Health Services Community Home Care. And then Alberta Health Services takes on the administration and the staffing for that. It's a great program for those that don't have, the need for the flexibility, can appreciate that it's a quick 15-minute visit for medication administration or showering, those things, without the constraints that maybe an agency would have where there's a minimum number of hours that would be required.
So you think that would be what splits the difference? Like if you need shorter visits, you go with the AHS, and if you need these longer blocks of time, then CDHCI fits you better. Does that seem to be the way it goes?
Yeah, I think, there's benefits to both programs and there's drawbacks to both. I think if you are looking for those very short task-oriented visits, the funded option is a phenomenal option. And the staff that you get through the AHS funded program are probably the staff that also work for us. They're good caregivers. And there's, the difference being how the program is administered and not necessarily the caregivers.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's beautiful. I had a meeting last week where we had the ex-minister of health involved, and we were talking about different programs that existed. And I brought up the CDHCI program, and they had no idea what it was. So it's just so funny how province to province, it's completely different. And then you have to have a specialty in finance and nursing and case management to really figure out where you fit in and what resources are out there. So I think that's why this conversation is important, and hopefully it can help people to receive the funding that they need to be able to stay at home, because I mean, God knows most of us don't want to go to a facility if we're lucky enough to reach old age. So knowing what's out there is so important.
And I think it's great that Alberta has recognized that there are clients in their homes that want the flexibility and have the capacity to be able to choose and hire an agency and, want more from their home care provider.
Well, it's a really nice mix of it. I know no Canadian wants to have, God forbid, private pay healthcare, but it's such a great way to sort of integrate the two together, because that private pay can give you more of a holistic, client-centered care model, where the public is so focused on that, like you say, task-oriented, because it has to be that way, because it's a one-size-fits-all. So it's nice to see that sort of marriage of the two ideals in that process. I mean, if I could have created a program, I think CDHCI would be the way that I would go, not the BC version, which we'll get into in a second.
If only we had thought of this, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And like I said, I don't think there's conceptions when it comes to caregivers, whether it's funded or private or a hybrid model, like the client-directed home care invoicing program. The caregivers are likely the same. They're kind, compassionate caregivers that are there to support the family, the senior, the client, the loved ones, all of the above, to stay safe and comfortable at home.
Yeah, the goal is the same. Yeah, yes, and the outcome is usually the same. Yeah. So let's dig in. There are options, and I'll go through them at the end, but let's jump right into the CSIL program, CSIL. It's called the Choice in Supports for Independent Living. If you're Googling it, And all you get from this is an acronym. CSIL is the one you're going to look up. It's information's all over our BC website, so you can access the information there easily. Now, actually getting onto the program is nowhere near as smooth sailing as I want to pretend that Alberta is, because it's always nice to look over the fence and say, hey, they have a really nice place. I want that. So
grass is greener.
It is. Isn't that grass lovely? Let's go there. So the CSIL program, it is, again, it's operated very much in a similar fashion as the CDHCI piece, but it is a lot slower and it is a lot more paperwork intensive, and it isn't a quick setup. Out here, I'm on Vancouver Island, in an area where there is a high need for senior services, and we have not a lot of case managers, and they're the ones that are the gatekeepers to the CSIL program. Mm-hmm. So the CSIL program it's approved by the case managers. They would come out, do an assessment, and again, it's based on need, like you had mentioned, and then they give you a pot of money. That money is to go directly to your care. Now, it's not that easy. The binder they give you is about an inch thick, and you have to fill it out and create a business plan related to staffing. You have to understand what it means to run a work safe, like EI and work safe and all of those extra bits and pieces that go with running a business. So you have to have a business model. You have to have funding from the government. You have to be able to run a schedule. So you have to have quite a high capacity or have access to people that have a high capacity to function, looking after your care needs, which really puts a lot of people out of play. You know, they can't access it because they don't have capacity to go through this rigmarole in the process. There are really successful examples all across the province of people that use the CSIL program, but the biggest barrier is really getting it up and running. There is... I'm just talking away. Sorry, I'll try and slow down.
No, that's great. That's good information.
Yeah, there are people to help. So social workers are out there to help. The case managers are out there to help. And then there is a nonprofit out of Vancouver called IFRC. Oh, I could individualize funding something or other resource. We can put a link in the show notes at the end, sure, just to make sure that everyone can access it if they do feel the need to investigate the CSIL program, which I would encourage everybody to do, because really, if you do qualify for this, you have so much more control and you're not in that sort of one-size-fits-all model of care. It gives you the opportunity to schedule and have the care that you need in the home when you need it, and hire your own caregivers so you can rely on those people. And that really is the only option for funding other than private resources. So things like insurance. Some people do pay into an insurance policy that helps with offsetting the cost of care in their later years. I've only come in my 18 years of service 2 people that have had that. And even then, it was not a very comprehensive coverage. It was very limited. So knowing if you do have insurance, taking a look at the documents, see what they need on their invoices. Yeah, because there's a lot of fine print. You know, you need a doctor's note. You need to have a nurse with a registration number attached to the invoice. And of course, you know, companies, we want to be able to provide that. So if it is something that you're looking for to have coverage through an insurance company, you would want to talk to the provider that you're using and make sure that they can provide what is actually a necessity for those invoices, because otherwise you're not going to be getting paid back. You're going to be out the cash in the end. So Lord knows we don't want that to come in the way of anybody's living expenses, of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
So just a question about the CSIL, Choice Supports for Independent Living. Yeah. Is this the option only for people who can remain independent in the home? You know, when you use that independent term versus assisted living, what are the limitations to the program then?
So the sort of built-in limitations are that you have to be able to start the program and continue staffing the program.
Maintaining the administration of the business, essentially.
Exactly. And that is often the concern. This IFRC company that we'll link, it's a nonprofit, and they can help with the setting up of it and bringing on the staff as well, so they can help with hiring too. So yeah, I mean, you need to be able to manage your own care. Most folks that end up qualifying and moving forward in CSIL have a physical condition like MS or something along those lines, that your physical, your body is deteriorating and not capable, but your mind is often very much intact. So, and previously this CSIL program wasn't even available for anybody over 60. Going back 7 years ago, it wasn't. And we saw such a need for the CSIL program to move into seniors care. And when it did, we thought it was going to be this huge, wow, look at what we did. But the barriers are still there. And unfortunately, it is really hard to navigate it to start with. So if you can live independently with these supports, and unfortunately that's the wording on it, is that you need to have either a board, which is 3 people minimum to help run it, or you have to be able to run it. So having backup.
So would there be an advantage? Like, what are the advantages to hiring an agency then, a home care agency versus a caregiver off the street? Is there an advantage to doing that?
Oh, absolutely.
Under the CSIL program?
Of course. So CSIL program, yes, you have to carry all of your EI and all of those sorts of things. So you would be double paying if you're with an agency. So that's a drawback. But knowing that what we normally do as an agency, we stand in the background as sort of a safety net, because if you're hiring off the street, you don't have backup. So you have somebody that does, 40 hours of work a week, and then when they're sick or on vacation or they quit or just don't show up that day, you don't have a backup. So that's sort of where we come in. And then if you're in it with an agency, you know that you're always going to have that shift covered. It may be somebody else rather than your usual staff member, but emergencies happen. And unfortunately, if you're running your own ship, you have no backup plan, or it's very difficult to have somebody waiting in the wings if they don't have a regular income attached to that. So that's the concerning part of it, is making sure that you have that backup plan. And I mean, we say it all the time, have your safety net, have your backup plan, and always plan for these unfortunate incidences that do happen, as often, unfortunately, that they do. So that's the difference there. And so that's the CSIL program.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Alberta's self-managed care program, where you're essentially opening a business, and the government gives you a lump sum of money to manage all aspects of your care then.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think in Alberta, the benefits to hiring an agency, is minimizing that administration of that program. Additional liability insurance associated with it, WCB, vetting of staff members, and like you said, the staffing pool, I think, is huge as well. So definitely benefits and drawbacks to all of these programs, but I think, the best case scenario is that the government is supporting people to stay at home, whether you're in Alberta or in BC. There's always red tape and hoops to jump through, but it's great that there's options out there.
Yeah. And that stops people from abusing the program as well, so that there are resources for people who really need it. So keeping that in mind, I mean, I'll jump through as many hoops as needed to get the funding for my loved one. And and there are options out there to help you get that funding too. So just knowing that if you have questions, you can always ask. And like, I know we're from Ohana Care, and we know how to access these resources. So if you do have questions, you can always reach out to a professional or someone who's been dragged through the mud along the way to try and get funding for people. So finding an expert in the area is really important when you're getting moving on that.
For sure. Yeah. And, it is a convoluted program, whether you're in Alberta, BC, or in BC in one of the multiple health regions that they have. And things run a little bit differently. The nuances of each of them are a little bit different, but there are definitely experts out there that, know the ins and outs of the programs, and likely have had clients, successful and unsuccessful on the programs, that would be able to support and help you understand.
There's other government subsidies and grants. So if you're trying to stay in your home, I don't know about Alberta, of course, but there's like if you're a renter, there's the SAFER program, the shelter aid for elderly renters. So that is based out of BC Housing. They can help with housing costs, homeowner grants. So if you rent, you get SAFER. If you're a homeowner, you can have a homeowner grant reduction. There's renovation tax credits through the Canadian government. So if you want to age in place, and a requirement is it's usually widen doors, put in a stair lift. Oh my gosh, the cost of renovating your bathroom to be more accessible is unbelievable. So there are tax credits that you can have for that, and not just for the senior, but if you're a loved one caring for a senior, you can use those tax credits against paying for like a granny suite or something to be put in the house to house your loved ones as well. So it exists. Again, red tape, but knowing that it exists and being able to look in to see if you qualify and then investigate it even further it's really important. Yeah.
And I think that the income tax, the tax write-offs at the end of the year, make sure you keep those receipts and utilize them, and doesn't hurt to try, right?
So, well, as long as you don't get audited, you're good. Yeah, I mean, always talk to your financial rep, whoever it is that manages your taxes. Make sure that it is all above board, because the last thing you want is the government looking into it. That would be a headache no one needs. But there's also, like, if we want to talk about other subsidized options for support to keep staying in your home, there's respite beds as well in our multiple health authorities, as we talked about. There's so many of them here in BC, but respite beds exist. They're difficult to find, but they're subsidized as well. So you can have a certain amount of time. Usually folks get 2 weeks a year of time that they can have their loved one go into a facility where they're cared for 24 hours a day, so that their caregiver can have some downtime, whether it's, a lot of folks book it around surgeries, or they book it around a vacation or weddings, that sort of thing, so that they can go and be with their other loved ones and have a well-needed breather. So that's an option out there too. And the adult day program, it's $10 a day, maximum $10 a day. Again, depends on where you are in the health authority in BC, but the adult day programs are also a place where folks with dementia, primarily dementia as a diagnosis, can go for once or twice a week, depending on the need and the availability, to get support outside of the home. So that's going out to a facility where you have recreation, and they have it's lovely. They have a group of folks that come in all together, and they get to know each other, and it's a lot of, I've gone to a few of them, and it looks like I can't wait to get that old so I can have, so maybe I'll be good at bowling one day, but I am not good now. Yeah. So there are options out there, but it's being able to find them when you need them, and not
navigating.
Like, folks don't look ahead when you're drowning. If you're drowning, you don't look further than your hand, like your fingertips. So knowing that they're just like getting that education when you have the bandwidth to absorb and move forward with it. That's the biggest thing that I can really encourage people is, if you know that your mom or dad or husband or wife is moving in this direction of maybe needing some more support coming up, look now, in the evening when everyone's asleep and you're laying there thinking, look at it, look and see what's there.
Yeah. And, like we talk about all the time, it's all about pooling your resources, right? So sometimes it's a phone call, sometimes it's an email, but getting different perspectives. Everyone has a different opinion, what works, what doesn't work. It has to be the best choice for you and your loved ones. So, getting to know all the information you possibly can, I think, is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, right? I have talked your ear off. Do you have any questions about the whole BC side and what we can do?
I guess it's great to know about the CSIL. What about funded? Is there a completely funded option through BC? What does that look like?
It's magical because it doesn't exist.
Okay.
There is, if you're on like the guaranteed income supplement, old age pension, low income seniors, they qualify for free in-home care. And that is, it's only run through the health authority, and it's fully subsidized. So you can even have And then of course, palliative care is another place where it's fully subsidized, but you can have the coverage in your home to stay in your home for as long as the health authority can sustain you. And then they investigate additional options for care if the finances are not allowing the person to stay at home effectively. And then again, you move into, if you're in a facility, you can have a rate reduction. If your loved one, let's say you have two folks living at home, one goes into a facility where they're charged 80% of their after-tax income. And if they were the primary breadwinner, and that's the majority of the income that couple had, then the person left out in the community to live doesn't have enough. So you're never going to be stuck. Like, the goal of the health authority, the government, the whole community as a whole is not to leave anybody behind or destitute. It's to support it. So just knowing the resources like the social worker that can help with these rate reductions. And then there's the financial, the separation. What's it called, Melissa? Help me out. The financial separation. It sounds like a divorce. Anyways, it sounds awful, and a lot of seniors won't do it because the wording makes it sound like you're financially and physically being separated. But it's a way to split the income so that one person will have their care and the other person can have the majority of the income to stay at home. So again, we'll have to put that in the footnotes of the podcast, because the old brain's got some holes in it, clearly.
Lots of resources out there. And, if we can utilize this podcast to just gain accessibility to some of these resources, I think it serves its purpose. And honestly, I think in Alberta, it sounds like we're pretty lucky to have a fully funded home care support program. I think that's pretty amazing. So, here in Alberta, we're very thankful to it, for it, despite the red tape that may be involved. For home care in Alberta, we don't even talk about income. It's not based on your income. It's purely based on need. So how lucky are we for that? That's definitely one of those misconceptions, right? Related to home care is it's actually not based on income at all, but based on need. So given that, because it's strictly based on need, that task-oriented, very quick, kind of dirty, get in, get out service, is available to anybody, which is pretty fun.
That is phenomenal. So I can give you the algorithm for our home support. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Okay. So you take your after-tax income and you multiply it. I wrote it down because I wouldn't be able to remember the number. You multiply it by 0.00138889, and that gives you your daily rate for care. So that's your
crazy number.
Daily rate. So if you want to write it down, folks, it's 0.00138889. And
also known as pi. The number that never ends.
Oh my Lord. I know. I don't stand a chance remembering that number. I did a quick run through what it would cost. It's about $50 if you earn 50,000. So if you earn 100,000, which nobody does in retirement, but if you do, then it's about $100 a day. And that's the subsidy that the government will put you on based on that algorithm. So how difficult can it get? That's the answer. 0.0033.
I mean, it's good to have a number associated with it, right? Even those hard numbers are hard to find, right? So it's great that we were able to share that here. And thank you for the quick math. You're so smart.
Yeah. Terrible. Yeah. No, it was predetermined. I was like, oh Lord, yeah, carry the one. Yeah, me and my advocate, that person. Yeah.
Well, I think this was a great conversation, Liz. I really appreciate your insight into how to navigate BC's convoluted healthcare system. It's really wonderful to know that there are resources out there. And I'm really proud to be part of a podcast that's going to support people to have access to those resources and just to chat about it, right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
debunking those myths and just chatting about it, right? I think people are reluctant to talk about finances and utilizing funded versus non-funded. So knowing that the options are out there, I think is very helpful. So thank you very much for sharing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think it was a good conversation. I'm pretty sure Alberta won. So it's Alberta won, BC zip.
You win some, you lose some. What
Yeah,
can I
the
say?
feeling we're gonna lose a lot here, but
Canadians as a whole, I think we're pretty lucky. So let's leave it at that. No winner, no loser.
yeah. And it's all about empowering each other to make the right decisions for ourselves
Absolutely.
and knowing what options exist. And if care is your major concern for the cost, we can, there's other reductions that are out there to help seniors to stay at home, alter their home to make it safe, as well as, unfortunately, there's reverse mortgages that exist too. So, I mean, I could go on and on, but I should cut it off. I know we're trying to wrap it up here.
That's all right. Well, like and subscribe so you can hear next week's podcast. And yeah, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. We'd love to touch on previous episode questions and get those questions answered for you. So thanks very much for joining us today. Thank you again, Liz.
Yeah,
and look forward to chatting with you guys again next week. Take care. Be safe.
Bye.
Bye.